Hello, I'm Otto, and in this tutorial, we're going to be setting up and parameterizing a bot mall blueprint. Well, we're not going to be setting up one, we're actually going to be setting up 6, and the last one is one that you probably won't use, you might not need, but it's really handy to have just in case you do need it. So we're going to be starting out by using Assembling Machine 3, and I assume that you have Assembling Machine 3 if you've unlocked requester chests. If you want to use Assembling Machine 2, that is perfectly fine as well. So I'm going to be setting this up with the actual parameterized options. And if you do not have the option to set parameter 0 as your item, you want to go into settings and interface, and down in the bottom left hand corner, you need to check show parameters in selection list. This is something that Woob added in one of the smaller patches, just kind of a tiny update patch, one of the like 2.0.4 something, like 4.5 or something like that. But it's has had a huge impact on parameterizing blueprints. So the last thing that I want to do is I want to connect the bulk inserter to the passive provider. This is going to allow us to set limits on our crafting machine. So now we're going to go into the ingredients, and I'm going to be setting up for 6 ingredients. Normally I'll only set up for 5, but I did have a situation recently where I went to go set something up and it had 6 ingredients. I was like, okay, I completely forgot that that had 6 ingredients, and that was the portable fusion reactor. This is the only item in the game that has 6 items, 6 ingredients. Well, I mean, except for the quantum processors. This also has 6 ingredients. One of them is a liquid, and we're not requesting in any liquids, so yeah, so this is the only item in the game that has 6. There's a couple of others that have 5, like the rocket turrets, the oil refineries, the biolabs. There's, a few of them. But for the most part, we are going to be setting this up for 6, largely because of the portable fusion reactors. So I'm also going to add in a low end and a high end for the items that we are requesting in. And I will set it up like this. That way the 1 coincides with 1, and 1. I like to do this just in case you have other items coming, like not other items, but just in case you have other circumstances. This will limit the amount that is being brought in and make sure that it really only caps out at a certain amount. Sometimes the bots tend to, they'll carry 4 items at a time, or usually 4 items at a time. So if they're bringing in multiple items, or multiple of the same item, this kind of gives us room to have extra, and we will be setting that up shortly. So then for the limiting factor, so we want to enable this inserter if parameter 0 is greater than a stack size. Well, parameter 0 doesn't have a stack size, so I'm just going to use 50. That is a well-rounded number. A lot of items have a stack size of 50. So that will just kind of help us stay organized and keep our bearings straight. So we need to make a blueprint out of this. I'm going to create blueprint and put this on my bars. Then we can right click it, and we're going to go up to the parameterize / reconfigure the blueprint option up here at the top. Now the 0 is the item that we're crafting. These are all ingredients, so we want to make sure that they are tied to parameter 0. So we need to set 0 for all of these options over here. And then we are going to be asking what item are we going to be creating? The next thing that we need to do is every single one of these numbers is going to be parameterized. So we need to check all of the parameterized options, and we are going to be setting a formula for each of them as well. So we need to check all of those. I kind of wish there was an option to just check all. Whatever, it is what it is. So now we need to go through and make sure that all of the 1s are together, all the 2s are together, and yeah, get those kind of set up. And then lastly, the stack size was for our parameter 0. And that is how this should look. Okay, all of these are good to go. So that's the easy part. And the hard part is over here. And part of that is one, because it is a little confusing for most people. And two, because, well, this list is, well, it's two things. One, it's incomplete. And two, it's also inaccurate. So I can completely understand where some of the confusion might come through. So the first 6 options, the PN underscore I1 through I6, these are all of the ingredient counts for the parameter that we're kind of calling on. In this case, it's parameter N. N is just something that you would replace with the item or the parameter that you're actually chasing. So we are going to be aiming for P0 underscore I1. That will give us the first ingredient of parameter 0. In this case, though, we are chasing... Okay, before I even get into the stack, and okay, let's go through all of these. So Pn underscore R, it says crafting time of parameter N. This is incorrect. Pn underscore R is actually the rocket capacity. If you wanted crafting time of parameter N, that would be Pn underscore T. And then the last one, the Pn underscore S, stack size of parameter, that is correct. So that is the one that we're going to be using here. We want a stack size of parameter 0. So we're just going to do P0 underscore S. That is going to give us 1 stack of parameter 0. The 50 in this case is, it just doesn't really matter. This is a placeholder. Every single one of these numbers are placeholders, and they are overridden by the formula that we call on over here. So there's a couple of different ways to parameterize the ingredients. I'm going to be doing this based on craft time, but before we even get into the craft time, you could also do stacks of these ingredients. So the way that you would do that is you would have, instead of P0, you would do P1 underscore S as an example. I know it's red, that doesn't really matter. I promise this will work. So that will give you 1 stack of parameter 1. And parameter 1 also has this function calling on 0, so it knows what the item is that we're requesting in. And then this would be, for instance, P2 underscore S, and so on and so forth. That's one option if you just wanted to keep it super simple. Although, I mean, not that simple, because it doesn't really show any of that over in the right-hand side, but except for the Pn underscore S, obviously. The way that I've done it in the past is I have set it up kind of like this: P0 underscore I1. So this is calling on the first ingredient of parameter 0 of the item that we're making. And then I will multiply this times whatever kind of amount that or add on to, like, anything that you can put in like an equation is going to be something that works. So you could have a plus 100 or, something like that. I have kind of determined that it's probably better to be doing this based on a crafting time per amount of time. And I'm going to be setting this up for 30 seconds worth of craft time. And the way that you would do that is, like this item here, this is saying whatever the ingredient quantity is for the first ingredient that you are crafting. So, okay, let's use LDS as an example. LDS, the first ingredient is 20 copper plates. The second ingredient is 2 steel, and the third ingredient is 5 plastic, I think. So this would bring in, if we just left it like this, P0 underscore I1, this would bring in 20 copper plates. If we did I2, that would bring in 2 steel plates, and I3 would bring in 5 plastic. So that's the crafting quantity. But LDS has a crafting time of 15 seconds. So if we wanted to be able to craft for, let's say, 30 seconds, we would need to be bringing in basically double that, right? So we would need to bring in not 20, we would need to bring in 40. Well, we're not just going to say times 2. So the way that we're going to do this is we're going to have the ingredient count, and we're going to divide this by P0 underscore T. So this is the item count of the item, or the item count of the first ingredient divided by the crafting time. And this is going to give us an amount that's equal to whatever we need per second. And then after that, all we need to do is multiply it times 30. And that is going to give us 30 seconds worth of crafting time. And again, I know this is red. It really doesn't matter. Actually, I can kind of show you. If I save the blueprint, I can... we've been talking about LDS, so let's just do LDS. So 20 copper plate, 2 steel plate, 5 plastic bars. And this is going to be requesting in 40 copper plates. Now, another thing to consider is that only the like Factoriopedia craft time is what's being considered. This does not like take into account the craft time of the machine. So if we wanted to do that, if we wanted to set this up in a way that it was a true 30 seconds, we would also multiply this by 1.25, which is the crafting speed of the assembling machine 3. And this can cause problems later on. So for instance, the foundry as an example. The foundry has a crafting speed of 4. The EM plant has a crafting speed of 2. And all of these other ones have a crafting speed of 2. So you can kind of see where, you know, even if you say 30 seconds, it might not be a true 30 seconds. But if you were to multiply it times the crafting speed of the machine, then that would give you a closer to true amount. And even that would not take into consideration the modules and stuff. So if you were, for instance, to pop in a bunch of modules, none of this would matter because the crafting speed would actually change. Same with quality. If you increase the quality, the crafting speed is going to change, and this will not be a true 30 seconds. 30 seconds sounds like a lot of crafting time, but that's also why I'm doing 30, is because, you know, once you start upgrading your ingredient or your quality items, then, you know, you're going to be producing things a lot faster, and it's going to need more items, and we're not going to have the ability to, and you could just go through and redo the parameterizations, but I'm not too concerned with that. So I'm just going to copy this and paste it into the first section of each of these other ingredients. And we need to change the I1 to an I, whatever the corresponding item is. So I6, I5, 4, 3, and 2. So now that's going to give us 30 seconds of crafting time for each one of the ingredients. For the higher end, I'm actually going to do kind of something similar. I'm going to copy this and paste this into each one of the others. But instead of 30 seconds, we're going to do 60 seconds. And then we are going to confirm all of this. It's usually best to definitely go through and double check your work. I'm pretty confident that this is fine. And save blueprint. So let's see what that looks like. Let's just use the LDS again. So that is going to give us roughly 30 seconds of crafting time. You can see that it is now 50. That is because we multiplied it by 1.25. So 25% extra than 40 is an extra 10. And why are all of these set to 100? That should not have been... Okay, I messed up something. Oh, I did not change the ingredients for these. 2, 3. Oh, see, there you go. Double check your work, folks. And save. And let's check that again. Okay, that's better. All right, so now this kind of gives us a little bit of a buffer area, right? Okay, so that is how you would set up an assembling machine. Thankfully, setting up the other machines is going to be a little, like, pretty easy. I am going to add in my blueprint that I just created, and I'm going to make a copy of this 6 times. 5 is probably fine because we're going to have to do the last one from scratch, but whatever. So this one is good to go, and now we're going to set up a foundry. And this is mostly going to be the same. We can literally just delete this machine and add in a foundry, change the parameter to 0, and then we're going to open up our blueprints again, and we're going to change this to select a new blueprint without the tiles. And then we are going to parameterize this. So the only difference that we're making for this is that we're changing the craft time to 4, or sorry, the last section to ×4, which is the craft speed of the foundry. And save. And now that is good to go. Now we're going to be doing the EM plant. Same thing, just delete the machine, add in the EM plant, parameter 0, and make a new copy of this blueprint without the tiles. And this is a craft speed of 2, so we're just going to change the 1.25 into 2. You know, it probably would have been better to start with one of the machines that had 2, since most of them have a craft speed of 2, but whatever, it is what it is. We're going to save that. We're going to skip the biolab for now, so we're going to go to the cryogenic plant. Parameter 0. And update this blueprint. This is also 2. Okay, and now for the biochamber. So I saved the biochamber for second to last, and the reason why is because this one's going to be a little bit different. Obviously, we need nutrients in, so we are also going to add the option. I'm just going to put it over here on the right-hand side. We're just going to bring in nutrients. 100 is a lot. I'm maybe 30. If it ends up that 30 is not enough, you could always reduce this amount. You know, if it's too much, you could just do 20. It is totally up to you. I should have probably also added in the spoil priority for each of these, even though it doesn't really matter because most of these are just going to be like 1 stack or less anyways. It's definitely a good option to have. This is going to be parameter 0. You're going to have a lot of problems with this anyways. Like, this blueprint is probably the least useful of a lot of these. And the reason why is, well, let's just set this up and take a look. So I'm going to make a copy of this. This is also a craft speed of 2. And this is not a parameter, so we are not checking this as a parameter. Okay, so why is this going to cause problems? Well, if you look at some of the ingredients are kind of more like symbols of what we might end up making. So for instance, this isn't necessarily making sulfur. Let's do... Let's do this one. Bioflux and Yamako Mash. So bioplastic. So this is going to be making plastic for us. So this is the correct parameter 0. But when we go to the quantity here, this did not actually set up for what we actually needed, which was plastic. And that is just something to be aware of. And the same goes for the other one too, for the assembling machine. This will also not function properly with this one. Same situation where we have jelly processing here, and this is giving us the symbol for jelly nut processing and not necessarily that, you know, giving us the jelly quantity. So we'd have to manually change that. That's the only exceptions that I can kind of think of that this is a little bit of a problem. And honestly, it's not even that big of a deal because the amount of times that you're going to end up using that bot-mall blueprint for those things is probably not many. Okay, so the last thing that we're going to be setting up is we're going to be setting up an electric furnace. This is a situation where, you know, you will almost never need this. And you can't actually set any recipe in this. You could, for instance, take, I think I have some on me. I do. You could add in an item in here to set the ingredient, but this doesn't even matter because when we parameterize this, it's not a big deal. It's not going to function at all for us. So I'm going to change this to an electric furnace. Create a new blueprint. So when we parameterize this, all we have is we have 0 set for the inserter to kind of limit what we have. And what is being brought in is completely based on this inserter. So we might do like a stack times 10. And this is a craft speed of 2. You know what? I'm not even going to worry about that. We're just going to do P1 underscore S. And this can be like times 2. So I was just gonna, you know, just bring me a stack of whatever it is that we are smelting. Good to go. And save. So let's test that out. I want to make some iron plates. Obviously there's nothing here. It is going to limit us to 1,000 iron plates being crafted and bring in 50 to 100 ore. Perfect. Okay, so that is going to be it for me for this episode. That gives us 6 blueprints. 6 bot-mall blueprints, I should say. So that is going to be it for me. And like I said, all of these blueprints will be available in my Discord for free. I give those out freely. Just join, and there will be a section for blueprints like this. Yeah, so I will see you in the next video, and thanks for watching.